Uh, and to kind of go on it, like you talk a lot about family, right? So you work close. I've seen your Instagram. You work very closely with your wife, Amanda,
Yep.
right? So I actually started my company with my now wife. I got married in September, recently married, and
Congrats.
me and
That's
her
awesome.
started the company. Thank you. Me and her started the company, and we kind of run it together. And I get the question all the time about, do you have any advice on working with your significant other? I could never do it. And I never really have that good of an answer. I mean, I think me and her work great together. Like, she's great. I think I do really well. Like, I never am able to form a great answer to somebody else. So I'm sure you probably get that question. What are your thoughts on working with your wife?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I look at working with the wife, generally they probably look at you guys as what they would call power couple because
I
you're
think
doing
so, yeah.
something and building something together. People say that, right? I'm sure they would be like such a power couple because look at the company you built. A result that you've created together makes
Right.
power couple. People look at us and always power couple, right? They want to
Of
own
course.
powercouple.com and create a power couple podcast and power couple episodes. And one thing that Russell Brunson actually loved about Amanda and I was our dynamic, how we work together. He always listens to our relationship episodes because he's like, man, I just love how they do that. Because for him, that he had all the money and the software and all the stuff, but him and his wife working together was like something they had never really done before. So when I define it, first off, what is the definition first of a power couple? The definition is two people with two different visions coming together, creating one like-minded vision, and then using their own skills, talents, and abilities in order to get there. Now, that might look different than working together in a business. Depends what the skills, talents, and abilities are.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose is that each person, we have two visions. We've created a like-minded vision, something together, which I'm sure you guys have done. It's like
Right.
you don't just go do everything that you want to do, and she doesn't just go do all the things she wants to do. You may think, well, where do you want to go on vacation? You're like, well, I love to golf and you love water, so let's go to Hawaii on the golf course. Like we created one like-minded vision and we used our skills, talents, abilities to be able to get there. Now think a lot bigger than just a vacation. That might be the mom staying at home, training up the children to take over the legacy. Doesn't matter really what it is. The biggest thing is that first step is, are we two people with two different visions creating one like-minded vision using their skills, talents, and abilities in order to get there? Because what happens is that these people are either don't work with their wife or they do and it sucks. It's one of
Right.
those
I feel like
two
a lot of
people,
people are
right?
like, I could never do that. Oh my God, I can't imagine. How do you do it? A lot of people are like that.
And then a lot of the women then, if the man's working, the woman's working, or the opposite, right? There might be men at home that are like,
Right.
I just take care of the kids. I hear women say this all the time. Oh, I wish I could like do what he's doing because like I just take care of the kids in the house and like try to support him. I'm like, no, like that's not what it's supposed to be like. Like you're using your skills, talents, and abilities in order to get to the vision. And so is the man. So those are the big things together. The second thing is to get on that same page. Generally what happens is enrolling each other into the vision. So one of the conversations you can have, and one of the rules that we have inside the power couple is not trying to get them to buy into your vision. And this, whether you're the woman or the man and you have the vision, you want to buy them in. Because at one point, I was the loser that was stuck just carpet cleaning. And I didn't really want to dream big. My wife was like trying to dream big. And then there's other times where I've been going after it. My wife's like, I just want to chill for a second. So inside of that, I don't go up to her and go like, what's your goals, honey? Like, what goals do you have for 2021? They're like, oh man, like attacking me. They feel all this resistance. Rather, having maybe a conversation like, hey, I got thinking like our future kids or our kids, we would never want them to get to like 29 years old, 27 years old, and just not really have any more dreams of things that they want to do. Maybe we could write down some things together of things that we want to experience in our life, something that we've never done before, and just start dreaming with no strings attached, no tasks attached with it. And after you start dreaming again, because it makes total sense, that's called the vision. Now we can kind of compile something together and think, honey, how could we get there? How could we have an ability to go to Disney World and bring our whole family? Or
Mm-hmm.
how could we get there? And now all of a sudden we're enrolling steps. What are the processes? What are the ways that we could get there? Like, well, if we work together, or if we save up, or if we say no to this, or if we invest in this thing, all of a sudden there's this creativity because there's an end result that's desirable, that's been agreed upon together, that's been dreamed about again. rather than us trying to shove our visions down their throat going, I want the freaking house, the car, the thing. We need to go out there and crush it. Look at my goals. Why aren't you as ambitious as I am? No, figure out what they care about, what it would be like if they had that thing, and build that desire in them where they're like, wow, I would love that. What are the ways we can get there? Honey, I believe that together we can get there. Really? Like they want to do it all of a sudden. And then it's like figuring out, is that working together, using skills, talents, and abilities to get there? For us, it is. That's what we love. We're both ambitious. We both want to run companies. That's what we love to do. Yet it's also okay if it's not. What's not okay is not using skills, talents, and abilities
Right.
to be able to support
It could be
the main
delegating.
vision of the family. 100%.
I feel like most of the
And
times
for
it's probably delegating for the average, a higher percentage of couples.
I don't think so.
No?
But that's because I had the immigrant mentality of relationships, meaning the immigrants come to America and they're known as being very hardworking,
Of course.
crush it, don't take anything for granted, take every opportunity, work as hard as it takes, because they see the opportunity and they're so grateful for it. And then you have these Americans that don't really care. They don't take the opportunities. They were born here. They were born with the freedoms, etc. How I look at this is similar to the guy who maybe they have their life together. Most men, they just think, first I got to make the money, get my life in order, and then I can get married. Well, what happens is that you have gone through all these experiences to be able to become amazing and well put together and have money and all this stuff.
Desirable. Yeah.
And the wife now has not gone through any of those experiences and can't
Right.
relate to any of it.
Right.
So either she's had to go on the same exact journey on her own. For me, we got married with nothing. We had nothing. We went through all the learning experiences together. So because of
That's
that,
the
we just
special
looked at
part.
each other and
Yeah.
said, hey, Sean, my wife and I, we just got married. We have no money. Would it be better for us to start a business not working, both of us, or both working? Well, both working, because that's like two people working on it. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Like we need to make this happen. And so we did it based on what the hell other choice do we have? We don't want to be separate. And we think two people working on a business is probably going to be better than one, even if we suck at it. So we
Right.
had this, like, we had no other choice. The problem with employment inside of America, and again, employment's amazing, right? Like, not everyone has to go out there and be like, I'm going to go lead my own thing. The problem with employment is very easy in today's society to make a little bit or a decent amount of money doing very little. And inside of a business, the hardest thing to do is make a little bit of money. It's the hardest thing.
Right.
So when they get into business or they have this great cushy job, then they go through all these conversations that you're talking, oh, well, maybe it's better to delegate and just have her stay at home and I'll just go to work and blah. I'm like, congrats on having that choice. For me, we were just freaking broke and we needed to figure it out. And I wasn't going to go out there and be away from my family all the time. So I started a business. That was just what I did. And so when I looked at it, I was like, man, it's easier to make a lot of money in a short amount of time than it is to make a little bit of money over a long period of time. It's a quote from Myron Golden. Phenomenal.
Definitely.
But inside of a business, if you right now, I could go out there and market to a business and try to get a sales position and make 200, 300K a year or whatever. And I'd be able to make a decent amount of money doing not that much. I'm not having to have all the stresses of the business, whatever. When we get into a business, most employees fail because they believe that it's going to be easy to make a little bit of money and then it'll be harder once the company grows. No, dude, the first $100,000 in business is difficult. You have no case studies. You have no reputation. You don't have a process for delivery. You don't have the refinement in the messaging and what people like and what they don't like in the reviews.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's so difficult. And that's the 3 years that I failed. I was like, why is it so hard to make such a small amount of money? Like, I just want to make a little bit of money, right? People are like, it's just a couple grand a month. That'd be amazing. Like, that's the hardest part is like, you don't have any of that yet. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, now I got the testimonials. I have product market fit. I have, like you said, metrics on what am I costing what's the cost to acquire a customer? What's the average customer invest with us? Now, all of a sudden, it becomes easier. So inside of that, I know that was like a long rant outside of it. Yet the biggest thing with the power couple and should you work together is first 2 visions, creating one like-minded, and figuring out what's the best way that we could use our skills, talents, and abilities together to be able to get there. Is it working together or is it not?
Yeah.
And celebrate both sides of it because both are equally important.
Right. Yeah, man. And for me, like that's great. That's great. And for me and my wife, we've been together for like 10 years. We basically started from scratch together,
And do you guys have
and
kids?
we don't. And I was gonna
It
say,
does make a
how
big
much does
difference as
that
well.
make a difference? Let me
A
just say one
lot.
more thing, then I want to ask you about that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
we have such an amazing relationship because we don't worry about like stupid stuff. We worried about bigger picture things, and that is a powerful thing. So that is, if you can have a relationship together where you're worried about your company, it's just a powerful way to live a better life. And then you're not like folding the socks or stupid stuff. You're stronger, and that's worked great for us. So we don't have kids yet, but how did that affect you? Did it throw a wrench into your perfect working relationship? Do you have a
Totally.
nanny? How did it all play out? Because I could be there. I
Yes.
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So this is something that Grant Cardone actually taught me about fatherhood, which is interesting because most people think he's like hustle grind, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Grant's dad died, I believe, when he was 10. And so Grant remembers his dad at the time, which think Grant's like pretty old. So if
Yeah.
he was 10, it's like 50 years ago and decently old at least. So 50 years ago, making 80K was probably the
Pretty good.
equivalent of making like 300K or more,
Right.
maybe a
Right.
little bit more than that per year. So he's making good money. And his dad every weekend would be out in his awesome lawnmower mowing the lawn, which was a $2 hour job at the time, $2 per hour. And he would go from making $80,000 a year on the weekdays to doing a $2 an hour job on the weekends. And then his dad died at 10. There's a quote out there that says, the problem is we think we have time. And one of the big things is when you hire or outsource or try to get your time back, you're really just buying your time back at a discount. If you were to hire a lawnmower guy, like a landscaper, he's not really paying $2 per hour for him. He's buying his time back at a discount because his
Mm-hmm.
time's worth more than the guy mowing his lawn.
Definitely. Definitely.
And so the same thing happened when it came to having my son, which we're still learning. He's 15 months. We went through like 4 nannies because of COVID and all these different
Yeah.
things. And it was very difficult because you catch yourself doing things where you're like, okay, before I had all this extra time. So if I wanted to use the vacuum in my house and vacuum around, it didn't really matter. Now it's like if I vacuum, then I can't spend time doing this or spend time with my son. What do I want to be intentional in my time about? So I just got more intentional with my time. I got more intentional with buying back my time. I got more intentional with the value of my time. Started thinking, why am I talking to this random person that isn't doing any work with us? Because it's literally taking time away from me being able to say goodnight to my son. And it was scary at first. It was super hard. Right? At first, my wife nursed the entire time. So every 2 hours, nursing for 30, 45 minutes, every 2 hours. Like
Jeez.
these were intense things at first. And so ultimately, it's just going back through this. Pressure doesn't create weakness, it just exposes it. Going back through these things. What's our vision now? What do we care about in life? How can we use our skills, talents, and abilities in order to get there? How do we buy back our time at a discount? What do we care about? And things that we cared about before we had kids, we now don't care about as much. Like getting a best deal on my landscaper. No, I called the best landscaper because
Right.
I didn't want to waste time going through all the landscapers.
Exactly.
I wanted to get the
Exactly.
best landscape. I'm like,
Eh,
dude, whatever it costs,
so
just get it done.
are you pro nanny?
What's your definition of nanny?
Well, like somebody who can kind of watch the kid, and I was thinking also they could maybe do some laundry and some dishes and stuff like that while they're watching the kid while we're at work.
Yeah, even think about what you just said about the dishes. Let's say your wife washes the dishes. It's amazing. You can learn a lot from washing the dishes. Every kid should learn how to wash dishes. You should be put through the crap of washing dishes. After a while, though, you've learned your lesson of the discipline of washing dishes.
Yeah.
So, where I like nannies is more so how do I get someone who can help support us in all these things that aren't investing into our child so that we can invest in our child? So, like you
Okay.
said, laundry and dishes, I'd rather give that up rather than getting a nanny and then doing the laundry and dishes and having them take care of the kid. I'd rather have someone do the laundry and dishes and
Of
hang out with my
course.
son,
Yeah.
or have
Right.
my wife be able
Okay.
to hang out with him. So for me, the investment in my son is more valuable than any of the tasks that I do. So inside of my book, I break down priority lists and how you fill your calendar. Uh, they can grab my book for free at nicholasbailey.com/ebook.
Okay.
If they want it for free and don't
Yeah. I
want to
mean,
pay
we'll get.
for it. If you
Yeah.
want a physical copy, go do it. But just because I plugged it like so many times, get it for free.
We're linking it
Um,
up and all that. Yeah.
Sweet. So inside of it, it's the investment in yourself because you can't show up for your family if you're like not healthy, you can't take care of yourself. Doesn't mean that you have to take more time taking care of yourself, just means that it comes first. How can you feel empowered so you could show up powerfully for your family? Second, though, is relationships. My relationship with my son and my wife is higher priority to me than my business. So because of that, I prioritize it that way. And anything, when push comes to shove, if things are pushing, my business is taking over my time with my son and my wife. It's either for short sprints or if it's unhealthy, I have to cut it. I would literally destruct my business right now if I had to and close it down if it was impeding on my family, my son, and my wife. And that's the difference is most business owners look at their business as their baby. They're like, oh, that's the
Yeah,
same
it's
priority
hard
as
for me
my
to
wife.
say that. It's hard for me to
Dude, it's
my business is
reality
my
though. It
baby,
is
but
what it is.
I hear the second you hold that kid in your arms, like maybe my mind might
Well, you
change.
could use your wife as an example right now. If you and your wife were fighting and it was sucking and she didn't want to do it anymore, I told my wife, I'm like, this would suck, but like I'd walk away from this and we'd do something else, or we'd stop doing these other things in the business that just don't matter. Let's just focus on the things that do so that we can have this unit back. Because I don't know if you've ever been in a conflict with your wife before, but nothing's fun when you're in a conflict. It's
Yeah,
like nothing's fun anymore. I don't even want to work right
yeah,
now. Like this
yeah.
sucks, right?
Like we never
So
have that
inside of
serious
that,
of
that's how I
conflicts, which
build
is
it.
interesting. Okay, yeah.
What was
Hey,
that?
that is.
What'd you say about conflict? What'd you
We
say?
never have that serious of conflicts, like little things here and there, but like we're just really on the same
Crazy.
page. And I
That's
know
awesome.
it's like we'll fight about like stupid shit, like I can't even think of an example. Like, oh, okay, she was supposed to put together an email for these contest winners for our e-commerce site, and she didn't do it. And I was like, I sent you an email. I sent you and our customer service person an email. You were supposed to do it, and I was like, kind of mad at her. That's like an example of one of our fights. It was more work related than like home
Yeah,
related,
yeah.
and she might be mad
And
at
even what
me.
you're talking about is like the way that we talk to each other in work and at home are very different. When I'm in work mode, I'm
For
like,
you,
listen, yeah.
because we don't
And
really
even
have
what
a
you
we
just
don't really
said,
have a
you would
wall. Like,
never like it'd be tough to like just be like, you said you were going to do the dishes and you didn't do them. Like that's just not the way you normally communicate in like normal home. You'd be like, hey,
right.
honey, like, did you want me to do these? Right? Like that's the difference. Rather than like in business world, I'll talk the same way to my wife. I'll say, hey, like I've said things like, hey, if you had one of your old bosses, would you talk to them this way? Because like this
Yeah,
is how the relationship
yeah,
goes. Is like I'm leading this company and I would like to be talked to like the leader of the company, respected that way. Like we've had conversations like that are hard, but I'm like, listen, I need to be able to be direct in the company because when
right.
things come up, I need to just be straightforward and to the point. And that's how we built things. And very much so in our relationship as well. We always are like attacking the problem right there. It's just a little bit different, right? Like for the business, we're looking at the business problems. There's a problem that needs to be solved, and it's both of us looking at the problem. In relationship, a lot of times personally, it can be like you said something of the opposite. And so we do talk differently in outside of work than in work, but take the same type of approach, which is very direct, straightforward. We don't push things under the rug. We talk about it right then. We get on the same page. And I would say that we don't have tons of big conflicts like you're talking about because conflicts build if you don't talk about them.
Right. So you
Yeah,
beat up
we
them
had
right
these small
away.
things that we continually do. Yep. And we're like, hey, what did you mean by saying this? Because the way that I saw it was this. And we have those conversations all the time because I have that happen all the time. My wife goes, hey, can you vacuum this real quick before the family comes over for dinner, right before this? And my first thought is like, why didn't you tell me this hours ago? How long have you been thinking about this? Like, I have work to do. I'm thinking about all this stuff. So sometimes I'll be, hey, like, what did you just like not have time? Like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
we'll just conversate right there and like get over with it. But see, that's my problem. And that's the big thing about relationships is whatever our emotions are 100% our fault and our problem, and other people's emotions are 100% their fault and their problem. And like we can only deal with our stuff. We can't control
Right.
other people, which I think is a good example.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's the
I
best
think
piece
that's
of
awesome.
advice. If someone asks me that question in the future, I'll say if you're a couple who work together, immediately address any issue before it becomes something bigger that affects both your home life and your work life immediately. And then
Yeah.
there have to be two type of people that can respond to that in a positive way, in a way that's like, okay, you can't get mad if someone comes at you with something because they're doing it right at the root of it. So you have to kind of understand that.
100%. That's why
Wow.
there's commitment. The commitment in a relationship is what causes more love. See, this is why I'm really big on marriage, because it's the physical form of biggest commitment in a relationship. Till death do us part, sick or poor. These are like big commitments that you're saying. So when you get in conflict, an example of a non-committal relationship would be like a random person saying, "Hey, Sean, Nicholas is an asshole and your show sucks." You'd be like, okay, have a
Yeah.
nice life. You wouldn't talk to them
Yeah.
again. You'd be like, "That's awesome, dude." Block, because there's no commitment to the relationship. A good example of this is around relationship boundaries. And there's an example of if someone were to broke down on the side of the road and you drive past them, you don't know them, you go, "I hope everything's fine with them." If you know them and they're like an acquaintance, you may say, "Hey, like, I'm praying for you." And maybe if it's a friend of yours, you say, "Hey, if you need a ride, let me know."
Right.
If it's a family member of yours, you're like, "Hey, like, if you need someone to pick you up, or if you need like maybe chip in for something to fix the car, let me know." If your wife breaks down the side of the road and the car's broken, you say, "Hey, honey, what kind of car do you want?" Completely different ways that you approach different people in the relationship. And ultimately, it's like what happens is inside the boundaries of relationships, you'll have people, if you don't set boundaries, you'll have people that are acquaintances that will act like they're in the wife spot or the husband spot, and they'll ask you for everything. They come into your house and they start taking stuff out of the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what's wrong with this person? You freaking just overstepping the boundary. And then you have other people that are in this family position that never ask you for help ever. And you're like, if they would just ask me, I would have freaking chipped in and helped them out, because they don't know where they're at in this relationship. So going back to commitment in marriage, you have a conflict, which always happens. Most people brush it under the rug and it becomes worse and worse and worse. Why? Because they're scared if we have this conflict, if we hit this head on, it's going to possibly make us break up, split different ways. They're going to be left, rejected, unaccepted. Now, that's because you don't believe in that commitment in the relationship. When you have the commitment, you can have the conversation. Inside of the conversation, you can understand each other better. And the only way you can love something or someone more is from greater understanding. And each time you have conflict or a conversation, you get to know each other better with the goal of not being right, but understanding. That's the goal of the conversation. I want to understand you. You want to understand me. Let's understand each other better. And on the other side of that resolve, you now love each other more, and now you can reset the commitment. And so it's like the commitment is what gets you to go through the hard crap so you can have the love again and recommit and enjoy life and love people even more. And that all happens first off with having a commitment inside the relationship that's greater than the conflict. Step number one.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. And you just have to think about that.
Yes.
Like, you can't be lazy in your thinking if you're in a relationship. You just have to kind of go through that thought process that you just played out. And if you do that, then you can have a great relationship, like you just said, the way you absolutely just played it out. So if you're thinking that through with every time you have a conflict, yeah, I feel like some people they don't think enough, or they're not self-aware enough, or their mind's just not turning enough to be thinking about that stuff. And if you do, you can have such a powerful relationship.
This is why I believe as a businessman, or maybe even as a woman, and I speak to men mostly because I'm like, I'm a guy, I'm not a woman. So if I talk,
and that's your
niche,
a lot, that's your brotherhood.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Is that there's areas of our life that we just can't get rid of. And when you talk about the wheels just aren't turning, and maybe they're just the business person, or they're just this person, the health person, and they're fit. I realized very early with working with all these men and myself that no one's going to work out for me. No one's going to eat food for me. They can help me. I get a coach. I can get plans. I can get a mentor that tells me what to do, shortens the gap, but they're not going to do it for me. They're not going to move my legs on the treadmill. Right. When it comes to the relationship as well, like I can read all the books and hire all the therapists, but no one's going to do it for me. No one's going to have sex with my wife for me, hopefully. And if not, I probably should figure out how to do these things. And so it comes down to taking responsibility for these areas of our life that we can't outsource. You can outsource ads and management, lawn mowing easily, but you can't outsource the food that goes in your mouth. You get prepped, but you're feeding yourself. The conversations you're having with your wife, your family, your bond with your kids.
Right.
You can't outsource it.
Can't outsource it.
So if you can't outsource it, those are the things that I believe are most foundationally important to invest in.
That's a great way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it. The things you can't outsource. those are the things to be masters of, and that to invest your time into being master of. That's really well put. I love that. Dude, you're a smart guy, man. I've been really enjoyed talking to you. I got
Thanks, I
one last. I
appreciate it.
got one last.